This is an effort that was started just prior to COVID. It's called the Southwest Fire and Climate Adaptation Partnership. It's a partnership that you can, again, put your phone up right now, and you can actually get access to some of this information about the partnership using the QR code. This is a partnership that was started by a number of organizations. The Southwest Fire Consortium, which is a fire exchange learning network that's supported by the Joint Fire Science Program. There are several of these programs throughout the Southwest and West and the nation. And we started talking, the Climate Science Climate Adaptation Science Center, and the organization I work with, that I can't say. And we realized that there was a lot of work that was going on that we really wanted to lift up and help facilitate and coordinate. This is a little bit like Emily Elias, when she was telling us about the Drought Learning Network. It's really sort of the same idea here, is to really kind of take a view of what was going on and provide sort of a coordinating body for this. And I'm really happy to say that Sarah Leroy serves in this capacity as our coordinator. And now the partnership consists of a number of organizations, again, loosely led by the Southwest Fire Consortium at NAU, as well as us, but really it's about bringing partners together to discuss these things through this kind of constellation of topics that are generated by their partners themselves. We currently have 2 active roundtables. One is the Cultural Burning Roundtable. Currently we have about 15 members. We meet monthly, maybe every 6 weeks or so, and we share opportunities to participate in events, to facilitate events, to really kind of know what's going on the ground in the capacity of cultural burning. As some of you may know, some of you are from California who are really engaged in this, a lot of this energy has been generated by the North Fork Mono tribe and the Karuk tribe, and others now are finding their voices and turning to cultural burning as a way to really integrate with the larger climate adaptation community. Again, this is sort of part of that sharing and learning from traditional methods. And it's been really successful in California. And you're going to be hearing tonight from some emerging researchers and practitioners. They'll be talking about this. Really excited, working mostly through Beth Rose, Middleton's lab, but other partners as well at the University of California, Davis. The other roundtable that we have is focused on adaptation. And that has about 16 members. Meets monthly, and another collaboration that was started within this particular roundtable was working with CCAST. That is the Collaborative Conservation and Adaptation Strategy Toolbox. We have a representative here, Ariel, raise your hand. And he'll be talking a little bit, or has talked a little bit, about GrassCast, a grass net, or maybe you had, at any rate, Ariel is the one who's behind this really great CCAST effort, and is now working with us to develop case studies focused on climate fire adaptation. And certainly we invite all to communicate with us through Ariel, through Sarah, to contribute more case studies, and these are there for, again, the shared learning, peer-to-peer learning that we'd like to cultivate and move forward. With that, I will turn it over to the next little lightning round. If we have one, are we doing another one?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, next
Great.
up,
Thank you.
Collin Haffee, post-fire responses.
Oh, thanks everybody. My name is Collin Haffee. I work with the Forestry Division here in New Mexico. I'm the Forest and Watershed Health Coordinator, whatever that means. We've been doing a lot of work this season on the fires that were described by our friends at USGS. And as I reflected kind of on the topic here of adaptation, I put this sentence up as sort of my presentation. I could stop here. I think anyone who's experienced this understands that this combination of fire and monsoon flooding is forcing communities to cope with violent transition to a new climate reality. There's a lot of people in this room who have lived through that violent transition, and we continue to do this. This is a photo that was taken a few months ago in the area around Las Vegas, and this is all messed up, but the point of it here, it's supposed to say community right here, well, which is sort of apt, right? The community piece, I think, in our adaptation efforts is missing. We need to focus more on the community efforts that we're taking to how do we help our communities adapt to climate change before we start to focus on the land and the water. How do we recognize that they're dealing with external factors that are competing for priorities and competing for limited resources, and they may not care about planting trees just yet. We need to do, as scientists, as people who deal with things that are wood or things that are flowy and water and cycles and systems, how do we take that smart, powerful brains and put it towards the community piece that's supposed to be in the middle? First, I think we address just the elephant in the room. The scale is too big. We can't deal with this. We can't deal with the 350,000 acre fire, let alone 2 of them in the same year. We just can't. The only thing we can do is sit back and let it happen. I took this picture in the upper portion of the Guyanas watershed, and 10 years earlier, I took a very similar picture in the upper portion of the Frijoles watershed. I don't want to take another picture like this 10 years from now. I'm sure I will, but I don't want to. We have to expand we have to expand our capacity, we have to expand our programs, we have to expand our authorities. We have to change what we mean by critical infrastructure, and this comes back to that community piece. Acequias are critical infrastructure. Historical sites are critical infrastructure. Cultural resources are critical infrastructure. Because if we lose those, all we have is people and a landscape that are separate from each other, and that's not what makes a human natural system function healthy and beautiful. How is a community of 16,000 people in eastern New Mexico supposed to deal with a fire that burns the entire mountain range? Right. And it leaves its communities at the bottom of the hill, hills that look like this, as Rachel described. They can't absorb the water like they used to. A small town in northern New Mexico, in Mora here, this is the town. This is the community. Where are the resources? Where's the capacity? Point to the houses here where the capacity lives, and tell me how we build capacity in these places without bringing in additional capacity and resources to deal with the challenge. This is a new disaster. This is a disaster that's been brought on to people who live in these communities for 400 years. There are lifeways at risk of going extinct in these communities because of mismanagement of forests and because of our inability to respond and react to a disaster that is coming to people. They're not coming to it. They didn't build in a floodplain for a 1,000-year event, for a 10,000-year event. This is coming on them, and how are we responding to help them? This is a former road. There's 4 houses up this road. People are parking at the bottom of this road and walking up, and they're staying in tents because they can't live in their house anymore because their house is now in the floodplain of a community area so they're afraid to sleep in their house, and so they're sleeping in tents. all of this effort, all of this work in 2022 and our flood response hasn't gone without any response from the federal agencies. It's just the response is insufficient. One of my heroes in this whole thing, you heard from her just 2 minutes ago, Dr. Jeannie Barlow. She is one of my favorite persons. I'm mad at her for not being here because I finally wanted to give her a hug in 3 dimensions and she's not here. So I'm bummed that I can't say thank you to her. But she has, the USGS and the early warning systems and the things that they've done are all very important, and they literally have helped save lives. Similarly, the Army Corps of Engineers has come in and they've done some support to help these communities prepare for the inevitable flooding and the inevitable debris flows. But they have one style of management, and it's emergency. You don't want your water managed by emergency, right? Because then you get this, which holds back some of the floods, and then you get this, and you're left to deal with this. San Miguel County is left to deal with this. The Army Corps isn't going to come in and clean this up every time that there's a flood, right? And you can ask other people in this room what it looks like 10 years after the fire. You're still left to deal with this. So how do we get better? We have to find ways to address authorities that are where our federal agencies and state agencies can go beyond what they're currently able to do. How do we work across boundaries? How do we work across jurisdictions? This is a climate adaptation. How do we model? How do we make it data available to all parties, easily accessible and digestible? How do we make sure that that's immediately available, not delayed months, weeks and months as we get, closer and closer to monsoon season? This is a climate adaptation. Changing policies to allow us to dedicate post-fire funding to communities in the same way that we do during fire suppression, and similarly, allowing for additional capacity and coordination post-fire. These are policy changes that allow us to actually take advantage or take control over this new disaster and respond effectively. 350,000 acres burned in Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon, not one person died. Because of the coordination, because of the response that we have. We lost 4 people in the flooding so far. In no small part because we don't have additional capacity. We don't have coordination that we have during fires. These are climate adaptations that are desperately needed to stop the unjust transitions and unjust shit that these people have to deal with.
Yep.
Thanks.